Hi guys, and welcome back to Chaos Head NoAH. So, yep, it is time to skip through a bunch of text, as is so often the case with visual novels. Uh, yeah, I'm just gonna... This is gonna probably take a lot of editing. I'm gonna have to cut out a lot of the, just a lot of the stuff that's just me skipping over text. I don't know how long this episode's gonna be, to be completely honest. My goal is to get the first two routes done today, and then, if I have time, record the third route as well and upload that separately. Yeah. It's gonna be a bit weird to try out, but I will do my very best. So, time to start once more. Okay, so, a funny thing I learned. Apparently, since Grim is husky here, if you say yes to the swimsuit option, she will wear glasses for the entire game. Not sure I quite like the implications there, considering Takumi's a minor, but, yeah. May as well. I should be disgusted, and yet... Wee woo, wee woo, wee woo, wee woo, wee woo, wee woo. Oh. Sunday, 3 a.m. Despite it being the weekend, the sounds of someone tapping away at a keyboard echoed throughout the building, undeterred by the late hour. Oh yeah, so apparently there's also going to be new scenes that pop up now. Yeah, okay. I was just checking to see what, okay. Sitting inside room 37 was a boy, facing a computer monitor. The boy remained still and unmoving, and instead of sitting in the provided recliner, he sat in a wheelchair. Oh gosh, it just hit me. Grim was always sending Takumi like gore photos and stuff, and now we know like Now we know that Grim is Hosky, who was behind some very, very brutal, disturbing murders. So, yeah, that kinda explains itself. Yikes. You absolute creep. The boy finally stirred, ending his period of motionlessness. His eyes, hiding beneath his cap, pierced through the screen. A nearly inaudible whisper left his lips.
これが次のニュージェネの妄想なんだね。
Yep, she did indeed draw it. So yeah, probably waited because Grim is husky. And given Grim's a nurse, yeah, probably very tired. When the heck did Grim have time to become a well-known... well, actually, I don't know if they were well-known. They were just a guild member. Once he was sure the user known as Grim had exited the chat room, the boy began to take action, draping his wrinkled hands upon the keyboard. His mission was to get into contact with Neidhart, to warn him, and to strike fear into his heart. A distorted expression weakly crawled onto the boy's face. In that moment, his expression may have appeared pained to an outside observer, but in reality, it was quite the opposite. The boy was smiling. He had contacted Neidhart, and Neidhart had responded. A casual conversation to most, but a miracle to him. His hands suddenly froze.
思い出して。君は知らないだろうけど、知っているんだ。
An enigmatic whisper, spoken as though it were directed toward Neidhart on the other side of the monitor. Returning to silence, he began typing once more, this time writing out a single mathematical formula. Neidhart failed to reply. From this, the boy deduced that Neidhart must have clicked on one of the links he had pasted again and again into the chat window. It might have been strenuous for Neidhart, but it was something that he had to show him at all costs.
怖いかい。でもだからこそ、君は目覚めることができるんだ。
Speaking those words to himself, he sent his final message. Whose eyes are those eyes? Without waiting for a response from Neidhart, he logged out of the chat room. Small sigh came from beyond the wall, followed by a light knocking sound. Sorry, just turning off my notifications. Okay, there we go. Signs that the occupant from the room beside him had stood up from their seat, and before long, the door to his cubicle, room 37, was opened. The girl didn't smile. Her expression remained grim as she took hold of the handles of his wheelchair.
もう一人のあなたとは接触できた？
His answer to the girl's question, which had been asked rather abruptly, was brief and concise. Still, being well attuned to the boy, the girl was able to sense a hint of tension in his tone.
何かあったの？
西条匠に接触してきたのは僕だけじゃなかった。おそらく監視がついている。
そっか。
She didn't speak another word. She simply pushed his wheelchair toward the front of the cafe in silence. Oh! It's just a coincidence. So, okay. So apparently, whenever I get a prompt like this, I have to always answer yes. For this route, anyways. The new gen killer is somewhere in this school. No, well, no, obviously, somebody didn't make it, but the killer is someone in this school. Whoever wrote this is trying to provoke, but nobody wrote it in the first place. I should definitely erase it, but it's not there. Aren't I just... Isn't Takumi just imagining it? Isn't that what we're answering? Lots of contradictory answers here. This is not one of the ones. I had to wait 3 hours before my name was finally called. It was a different examination room than the one from 4 years ago. But when I stepped inside, I was welcomed with a face I remembered dearly. The doctor was exactly what you'd think of when you imagined a kind old man. His face definitely looked older than most, yet also soft at the same time, and his demeanor only served to emphasize those qualities. He hadn't changed a bit since I'd last seen him 4 years prior. It almost made me wonder if he was physically incapable of getting any older, though I never known his actual age in the first place. The desire for me to latch onto him and never let go became stronger and stronger. I could rely on him. He could save me. I felt incredibly happy to see him again. But the first thing that came out of his mouth was...
今日はどうしました?
His voice was indeed gentle and filled with a kindness to calm the hearts of others. However, it didn't carry the same familiarity that it had back when I'd been visiting the hospital regularly. And now we know why. It felt like he was only interested with me on a purely professional level. So I couldn't help but tell him my name.
西条です。
ん? ああ、 これはご丁寧に。高階です。はじめまして。
You don't have long on this world. Stay away from nurses and women with spoons. And spoons in general. And neurosurgeons. Oh.
どうする？とりあえず寝ていってみるかい？
Yep, I made Husky wear glasses. Let me see. I want to see.
$3時間くらいしたら起こしに来ますから。
Yep, she's wearing glasses. You sussy baka. And I think I preferred her without them. Okay, apparently if I answer everything, then I get an achievement and possibly a different diagnosis. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Yes, I am such a degenerate. I am such a degenerate. Hate me! Hate me! Oh yeah, maybe I gotta... Different diagnosis, let me see. Oh, water lily. Oops. Ah, dang it. Water lily. The shape of Takami's D-sword represents his pure soul. If you can even call it pure. Its very long design featuring no ornate decoration signifies that Takami, who until then had only been running away, had begun moving forward, risking his very existence. This edgeless sword severs everything in its path by vaporizing all it touches in an instant with tremendous heat. Diagnostic results. That's a spoiler, I think. Probably a good thing I got the first diagnosis I did. You are completely and utterly delusional. It's very possible that you can no longer live without your delusions. You constantly fall in love with two-dimensional characters, and you wish you could walk straight into your computer screen. Real life will never be fulfilling to you. It's too late. But there's no need to feel guilty about it. It doesn't matter what everyone else thinks. Surrender yourself fully to your delusions, to your imagination. As long as you're happy, nothing else matters. I just ask that you stay cognizant of your own health. Always make sure to eat. Always take care of yourself when you're sick. And take care of yourself in general. As long as you do that, you may continue living your blissful, luscious, delusional life, where you never have to worry about the pain of reality again. Your delusions shall never betray you. A word from Takami.
Did you know? If you stay a virgin till you turn 30, you become a wizard and get magic powers. That's why 3D sucks shit. It's totally worthless. A girlfriend that lives inside your head is the best kind of girlfriend, after all. Everyone knows that. Rufflemau. As she descended from the stage into the audience, I couldn't take my eyes off her. What was going through her head, I wondered. The rest of the Phantasm members resumed playing. But Thess wasn't singing this time. She just wandered about in the middle of the crowd. And then she casually threw her jacket off, exposing her sexy shoulders.
Yes! Shoulders! Shoulders! Yeah, baby! Shoulders!
previously quiet fans were getting excited once again. Everyone threw their fists in the air as they jumped up and down wildly. They made the ground shake so hard, it felt like an earthquake. Wait, no, it was an earthquake! However, nobody laid a finger on Tess. Maybe they thought she was too holy of an existence to be touched. Normally, if a girl with her charisma dove into the crowd, it wouldn't be surprising if they got crushed to death. But it seemed that Phantasma's herd of sheep had agreed to restrain themselves, all abiding by the unspoken rule of do not touch Fess. And in doing so, they could feel Fess's presence right in front of them. They could savor the fragrance of Fess's sweat. They could touch the same air as Fess. And that was the greatest joy her followers could ever know. Until this point, I thought that this was just any other performance. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw what Fess did next. She casually began to unfasten the belt around her waist. And then she threw it into the crowd. All of her followers instantly reached for it, competing with one another to lay their claims over it. Then, with a sidelong glance at them, Fess. What in the actual hell?
Wait, no, this is a delusion. Oh, right, yeah, I did pick positive.
Tip her miniskirt. Her skirt gently fell to her feet.
Wait, that's not purple and symbolic of her relationship with Takumi.
Her black, sensual underwear was exposed. She seemed to not have a care in the world about her acolytes seeing her in such revealing clothing. Maybe she was high off the atmosphere at the venue, or maybe this was part of the performance, or maybe she was just an exhibitionist. I had no idea, but her utter eroticism kept my eyes glued to her all the same. Fess looked at me once more. Her lips formed a bewitching smile.
おい、こっち来るぞ。
Fess's eyes were fixed on me, never once looking elsewhere. She slowly started approaching, as if she had found her target. Then, when she finally arrived before my very eyes, as if I were her lover, she blew her sweet breath toward me and wrapped her arms around me. Her skin was slightly damp with sweat. The scent and warmth were so alluring, they made me dizzy. Her breasts pressed up against me, quickly and repeatedly rubbing up and down my body. I guess it's true what they say about singing being exhausting, because I could feel her ragged breath directly on my skin. Her arms wrapped around my back, holding me close. Her nails were digging into the nape of my neck, and her thighs were twined around my leg. Shivers ran through my entire body like jolts of electricity. I wasn't able to push her aside, nor could I return her embrace. The only thing I could do was stand still, staring at her with eyes wide in confusion. Her followers cheered again, but this time, the noises they made sounded more like screams. The music played by Phantasm intensified. Chants of Fess echoed throughout the venue. Then shouts of do it, began to follow. Do it? Do what exactly? In a situation like this, what could they be talking about? I had no idea. Fess, meanwhile, just kept hugging me in silence. Seeking help, I looked for Misumi-kun's silhouette in the crowd. When I found him, to my surprise, he was sharing an intense kiss with a girl in the crowd I'd never seen before. No, it wasn't just Misumi-kun. It was CoZ! That's right, E1, get cooked! Get cooked! The rest of the acolytes boys and girls alike are throwing their clothes off, getting as naked as the day they were born. Some embrace one another, some place their lips together, and some were even beginning to do the deed. Hell screams of pandemonium complemented the gluttony for carnal pleasure. Moans, groans, and the obscene sounds of flesh rubbing against flesh pervaded throughout the venue where Phantasm had just performed. This is a black mass, I finally realized. This was an obscene feast hosted by the witch known as Fess. And more importantly, the sacrifice brought in for the witch today was me. I had been chosen as the partner for Fess. Is this really what a Phantasm concert was like? I was also beginning to lose myself in the atmosphere. I could feel a hazy mist engulfing my mind. I felt excitement toward what was to come, but also dread. I felt superior, having been chosen by Fess, but also completely entranced by ecstasy. I thought I was going insane. Like time, the world had stopped completely.
How much longer is this going to go on for?
Fess's laughter reached my ears once more. Even in the splut of sound, I could hear her voice clear as day. What a sexy voice! Just hearing the sound of it put me on the verge of fainting. The Fess was seducing me into diving further and further into this melting pot of pleasure.
How much longer do I have to read this? How long is this going to go on?
Her teeth slightly sank into my earlobe. She then let out a sigh right into my ear. And then she whispered,
その目誰の目
Get jump scared, boy! Finally.
フェスエロいよフェス
Gosh. Forgot how much I hated having to endure Takumi horny delusions. Wait, what am I saying? Actually, no, that one was, that weird rape one was, forced onto him by NoAH, it seems. But, yeah. Don't care much for the horny bits. I'm here for the plot! The lore!
Sitting in front of my PC, I had gotten lost in another delusion of mine. Oops. The concert I'd gone to earlier today was great inspiration. After all, as far as 3D girls went, Fess was pretty nice.
You know, considering that the girls in Robotics Notes are apparently actually 3D, this is kind of hilarious. The one game where they're going on and on about 2D and 3D girls has the 2D girls who are the 3D girls, and the 2D girls are also the 2D girls.
That said, the number of people in the crowd had been way too high. Hell would have to freeze over for me to go there again. I'd wanted to GTFO basically the entire time.
I wonder what this could possibly stand for. That's slang, short for get the fuck out.
An expletive
used to tell someone to go away, or a phrase talking about leaving in general. It can also be used to express disbelief. Did I not get this before? Huh. Okay.
In the end, the size of the crowd made me too sick, so I had to rush to leave the venue. Today's delusion had been awesome. And who knows? Maybe Phantasm and Fess actually did that kind of stuff.
Well, they wouldn't with you, that's for sure.
They just decided to skip today. Well, anyway, guess I'll log on to ESO or something.
Talk to the, I think about it. Grim is kind of the perfect, MMO partner for you, given that she's also a creepy, horny degenerate.
僕はいつでもお前を見てるんだぞ
Yeah, okay. picked positive. Is Neidhart gonna turn around and stare at the screen?
お前はそれに気づいてるの？
And then,
Show me his face.
let's go to the...
Let's go to the 2D world.
I hadn't typed anything, and yet Neidhart still spoke. Thinking it was just an optical illusion, I rubbed my eyes, but the message was still there, displayed in the chat. Go to the 2D world? What was that supposed to mean?
Even you can be a hero. We'll fight together.
僕に言ってるの？
You're not into 3D, right? You couldn't care less about it.
いや、そうだけど。
Neidhart was speaking to me, the player controlling him. WTF? Did he have a will of his own after all?
Place your hand on the monitor. When you do, you'll be able to enter Basilard as Nishijo Takumi. The password is, whose eyes are those eyes?
だが断る。二次元世界に行くなら、せっかくだから僕はエロゲの世界を選ぶぜ。バゼラードはお前に任せるよ、ナイトハルト。
After replying, I used forced shutdown to turn off my computer.
Whoosh. Baka! Look at that half a fish sandwich, all gone. Such a glutton, Nanami. Ugh. Murder. Cleaning people. Woo! Call. Hi, Senna. Please don't kill me. Ow. I asked you not to kill me. Okay. Wait, which chapter is this? Okay, chapter 3. Yeah, this one doesn't matter.
Girl B looked down at me coldly. This chick wasn't normal, waving a sword around in the middle of a crowd. Wait, was she in the midst of a hit and run? Was she a spree killer? Or could she be the new gen culprit, or the demon girl's accomplice?
Please let me ogle you more.
Yes.
Yes! Yes! If it's with this girl.
If it's with this girl, I'm willing to get down on my hands and knees and beg with all my heart and soul.
Yes! Yes!
If given the choice, I prefer being stepped on.
Yes! Yes!
I've got nothing against a little swordplay, if you know what I mean.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
She's gonna kill me with that sword either way.
Yes! 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 Yes!
助けて。殺さないで。
The next thing I knew, I was trembling. I felt like I was this close to pissing myself out of sheer terror.
何を勘違いしている？私はただ見えるのかと聞いているだけだ。
What the hell was she talking about? If I said I couldn't see it, would she kill me? How was I supposed to answer if I didn't even know what I was supposed to be seeing?
少し落ち着け。もう一度聞くぞ。この剣、ディソードが見えるのか？
D-sword. It was the first time I'd ever heard that word.
Not for me.
It had to be referring to the sword she was holding, but...
Go back to the container. Hi, Nanami. Hi. Hi, how you doing? Oh, look. Whoop. Earthquake. Entire world shaking. Hi, Misumi. Hi, Ayase. Misumi, don't do it. You're gonna fail. She's gonna turn you down. It's gonna be embarrassing. No, Misumi, no. Okay. No, Bon, get away from him. Sua's evil. Sua's evil. Sua, you bastard. I know it's you. You're evil. You're the crucifixion killer. Maybe. Okay, here's the next important one. Pick negative. We got traumatized Takumi.
Guess I'd go ahead and listen to it.
Delusion.
楠木優愛です。ごめんなさい。突然お電話しちゃって。ただ、どうしてもお話ししたいことがあって。セイラちゃんの新しいフィギュア、私も買いました。西条くんのおかげです。ありがとうございました。とっても可愛いんですけど、ちょっとエッチですね。買うときすごく恥ずかしかったです。あ、そうそう、今週のブラチュー見ました？すごい展開でしたね。私見ながらずっとドキドキしちゃって。この多重人格者。
Damn.
あなたが殺したの。人殺し。真犯人。罪を償いなさい。逃がさないから。その目、誰の目
？Well, that was something.
Even though it had been my own delusion, I was terrified. It was entirely possible for you to have gotten a hold of my cell phone number from somewhere and called me, after all. I didn't want to listen to the voice message anymore if I could help it. But since I'd already simulated the worst possible outcome in my delusions, I should have been able to handle it as long as I only had to listen and nothing else. Shaking off my depression, I set the message to playback. Then, after checking multiple times to make sure the demon girl wasn't there, I put the phone to my ear.
Hi, Bon 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 Bon. Hi there, you groomer. Hi there, boxed lunch shelves. I'm picking neutral. This is the same shit. Hi there, old man in a wheelchair. Bodies, bodies, bodies. Let the bodies hit the floor. 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 Wrong notes. Damn it. Whatever, I'm not gonna try again. Okay. Yeah, this doesn't matter.
I should probably say something. Maybe a greeting of some sort? But it wasn't like I ever greeted people normally. It would be even more unnatural for me to suddenly start doing it out of the blue like that. Maybe I should bring up the transfer student. But it wasn't like I ever chatted with Rimi normally. It would be even more unnatural for me to suddenly start chatting with her out of the blue like that. I could thank her for the day before yesterday. No, before I did that, maybe I should apologize for being so rude to her after she'd done so much to help me. I could also ask her about why she'd been there back then. I could ask her if maybe she'd hugged me because she liked me. Or I could ask her about why she was at the site of the crucifixion. No. None of those topics were conversation starters at all. What was I supposed to do? The silence put more and more pressure on me. I knew I ought to say something, and I knew it would be awkward to stay silent, but I still couldn't force out any words. Oh, I hated the 3D world so goddamn much. I was tired of almost choking over just trying to talk. I just wanted to hurry up and go home to my comforting Seraton.
ねえタク
Amy's voice suddenly broke the silence. I jumped in surprise, and a shudder ran through me. I still couldn't look up.
その一昨日はあの後大丈夫だった
Amy's voice was quiet. I felt her breath faintly on my ear. When I looked up in surprise, I realized that she'd moved her face really close to mine, and she was now whispering in my ear. Amy's body was right next to mine. A soft, warm body that had hugged me in the middle of that road. My mind was going completely blank. The only thing I could think of was the sensation of Amy's body against mine.
無事に帰れたかなって結構心配した
I nodded frantically several times.
そっかよかったもうあんな危ないことしちゃダメだぞ
Upon telling me that, Remy made to leave the classroom. I felt the sudden urge to ask her something. She just said something dangerous like that. I wanted to ask her, back then, what did it all look like to you?
Neutral.
と
She was lost in thought. She probably didn't have anything in mind yet.
見返りなんていらない。
それって貸してくれないっていうこと
Amy's shoulder drooped in disappointment.
そっか残念
いや違うよ。見返りなんて必要ないってこと。普通に貸すよ。
タクありがと
A big smile shot onto her face. She looked incredibly happy. She looked like she was halfway ready to glomp me. I couldn't say I made girls happy very often, so it inadvertently made me happy too.
She's probably interested in, like, music and stuff because of her past.
I was glad I'd been brave enough to say it.
美人じゃあ見返りなしで借ります
Stop calling me bitchy.
となれば全は急げタクの家にレッツゴー
Whoosh, 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 whoosh. No, no, no!
I picked up the toy D-sword sitting in the corner of my room. I went to stand in the center of my room and brought my sword to eye level like I was an ESO character. Alright, I just need to picture an image of a sword in my head. Remy was looking at me, our eyes met. She was grinning at something. I could feel my face turning red. As per my usual habit, I'd held up the sword as if I were alone in this room. It must have been pretty painful to look at from Remy's perspective. I want to die. I calmed down and lowered the sword. I was too embarrassed to look at her. I'd rather not dig myself any deeper than I already had. I could only hope that she'd be gracious enough to pretend she hadn't seen it. If she did, I'd even be willing to get down on my hands and knees for her. I thoughts were then interrupted by Rimi striking the final blow.
ねえねえ、チャンバラごっこ？
I shook my head no.
いつもそういうことしてるの？
Once again, I shook my head no.
今日が初めて？
This time, I nodded.
チャンバラごっこの相手役、私がしようか？よくわからないけど。
I shook my head vehemently. Telling you, I'm not playing samurai.
ねえタク、どうしてこっち見てくれないのかな？
Isn't it obvious? I'm embarrassed, damn it. You saw something you should never have seen. Pure pain and suffering a man underwent. His girlfriend found his porn stash. Must have been comparable to what I was going through right now.
Does anyone even, like, do that in real life? Like, I feel like at that point you're just kind of asking for it.
タクってさ、
Oh no. Did she hate me now? I don't know if I could ever recover from that. I had to clear up the misunderstanding.
かわいいね。かなりキュンときちゃったな。今のは。
You're just like my little brother!
Takumi got bro-zoned. He died. This is the bad ending. This is what you get if you don't hallucinate Rimi being a weird demon in the music store.
Amy was writhing in delight as she tightly hugged the Seraton body pillow that sat in my chair. I thought she was going to make fun of me. Judging from her attitude, she seemed to mean what she'd said. In other words, Ruby had just unintentionally moe'd over me. I felt relieved. She didn't hate me, thank goodness.
Flag tripped! Okay.
I was at a loss about what to do, so I opted to subtly examine Rimi's expression.
Well, she has not changed clothes.
Come on, sitting like that was cheating. And while she was clearly wearing a miniskirt, she was also holding her knees as she sat, so I can see her panties. Sakata-san.
Same dialogue. Just different.
ねえタク、
はい。
Oh, God, I was acting suspicious, wasn't I?
Oh, wait, yeah. Whoops, I accidentally got into reading mode. Yeah, you're horny.
タクは自分の未来を考えたことある？
Oh, I think this is new.
例えば人を含めて全ての生き物は生きてるだけで何かを傷つけてるんだよ。
Okay, yeah, this is definitely new. And this question is something that, very much has a reason behind it, as we know the existence of Takumi's... I mean, we know the nature of Takumi's existence.
わかる？
だから
だからね、無理しないでいいからね。
Did she mean I didn't need to force myself to go to school? That I should stop playing ESO beyond what was reasonable? Stop being a total addict and try to live a healthier lifestyle? Or was she implying that I shouldn't hold back whenever I was struck with lust, and to let my instincts take hold? Well, I doubted it was the last one. Mimi stretched out as far as she could, then eagerly rose to her feet. The hem of her skirt fluttered in front of my face.
私、喉乾いてきちゃった。何か飲み物ある？
I stood up and headed toward the fridge. I peeked inside. I had some half-finished cola, but I drank directly from the bottle, so it probably wouldn't be the best idea to give it to Rimi.
ないなら買ってこようかな。コンビニって深センの駅前にあったよね。
Yeah.
ちょっと行ってくる。
No weird clothing change.
Kunka.
Kunk.
I could sense... Oh, okay, just that. I could sense the remnants of a floral scent wafting through the room. This was the This was the smell of a girl. Rimi's smell.
最低だ。
Oh my gosh! That's a hilarious time to put an Evangelion reference. Sorry for dying over here. Over a freaking reference.
I sat in my chair, dejected at how low I had sunk, unable to do anything but cringe at my vulgar deed. I should be terrified of Shogun and Yua, but here I was, soaking in complete ecstasy.
Oh, okay. We, gonna recognize that these two actually know each other this time? Suwa and Hazuki suddenly went silent, then looked up at the ceiling. They then looked back down and stared at each other. After Suwa sighed, Hazuki's perplexed expression suddenly changed.
見られていたな。
Oh god, are these two fucking?
その目誰の目ね。
Suddenly, an air of familiarity was injected into the words that the two exchanged. The sense that the two could not be anything other than old friends was loaded into their every word.
西條匠のオリジナルは見つかったか？
いいえ、この病院内にいることは分かっているの。これ、カルテよ。彼は無遊病だわ。
You know, I feel like aggressively shouting and grabbing the wrist of a nurse isn't exactly the best way to blend in and draw attention away from yourself. In sharp contrast to how resistant she had been to hand it over before, Hazuki readily passed the medical record to Suwa. She had already had it in her possession, as if she had somehow predicted that Suwa would pay her a visit.
助かる。じゃあ予定通りに O フロントに奴を誘導して 覚醒させるか。
Yeah, we. So that was indeed the church that was trying to force, Takumi to awaken.
接触するの？
ああ、顔は隠すけどな。
Ah, he was Darth Spider. With the mischief. Yep! Well, guess we know who the baby daddy was. Damn. I had a feeling. With a mischievous smile, Suwa placed a gentle kiss on Hosky's lips.
コスプレしてパーティーに出発だ。
I knew you two were at it. So yeah, I assume Suwa's probably the father of the fetus. No better way for parents to bond than to conceive a child and then rip it out of the mother's body and stuff it into the gut of a dead college student. Whose phone was that phone? Yeah, just keep going. What's in the box? What's in the box? It's Nanami's hand. Which apparently is actually her hand after all. Hi, worst girl. Go up the stairs. Hey, Suwa, you bastard. Take off the mask. I know it's you. Freaking weirdo. Does this mean that... Well, never mind. Well, I guess my Darth Spider theory is kind of broken right now.
どうせ生意気なナナミッチのことだからさ。
Wow, you are the worst girl.
ここでタッキーが頑張って助けたって感謝してくれなさそうじゃん。
Yes, she would.
Seroton's words got straight to the point, and it caught me off guard. It was true that even if I saved her life, Nanami would probably say something like,
お兄のせいでこんな目にあったんだよね。バカ。
she wouldn't even thank me. Instead, she'd insult me.
I think about it. I wonder if, like, Suwa, like, finally got laid with Hosky. Beautiful nurse. And he's just like, oh, yeah, I can insult people for being virgins now. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, it's something that the church set the two up with each other, and now that the pathetic loser finally has a girlfriend, he's like, ah, yes, I can finally insult other people for being virgins. That just seems like what Suwa is. He's just such a loser. Anyways, I'm gonna stop ranting. It's Suwa, who cares? Yeah.
I'd have to bear living with a family that would despise me for the rest of my life. At the end of the day, no matter what I could say about her, Nanami was still just some 3D little sister. She didn't make me moe over her, and she didn't have the pure heart of a 2D character. She was always looking down on me, and she secretly, no, not very not secretly, made fun of me whenever she could.
Ironically, she's probably the most pure-hearted of any of the characters.
What happened to my bratty bitch of a sister was none of my business. Seroton was one thing, but my shit-tier little sister wasn't worth betting my life on.
タッキー、自分のことだけ考えよう。私はさ、
You are the worst waifu ever. I hate you.
こうして
I will rip your wig off of your
や
scalp.
りきりでお話し続けたいよ。
Takumi is going to murder a bunch of you after this.
Same. I also felt the most comfortable when talking to Seroton. I didn't give a shit about Nanami.
So for this, negative. You are evil.
警察の人が後でお話を聞きたいそうですよ。
Yeah, she's probably just screwing with Takumi.
Husky's gentle tone turned cold. Without looking at me, she continued writing something on a piece of paper attached to a clipboard.
妹さんを殺すなんてひどい人ですね。
Yeah, she's screwing with him. She would actually know what's going on with his sister at the moment, so yeah, she can do this to him. You're a bitch.
What had she just said?
あなたの家で見つかったそうですよ。死体。妹さんの手首を切り落として持ち歩いていたなんてまともじゃないわ。
Okay, that weird mouth glitch with her is happening again. It's just the game trying its hardest to make her keep her mouth shut because she doesn't deserve to speak.
僕は殺してない。
そう主張しているらしいですね。意味不明なことばかり言ってて話にならないって刑事さんがぼやいてました。心神喪失で無罪っていうのを狙ってるんですか？
Insanity. A state in which a person loses the ability to distinguish between right and wrong due to some form of mental disorder. According to paragraph 1 of Article 39 of the Japanese Penal Code, an act of insanity is not punishable, resulting in cases in which criminals are acquitted without being held legally responsible for their actions. I think about it. This moment is like the dead giveaway that Husky is evil, because, like, either version is just her, like, either version of her is her, like, coming in twice, saying the exact same thing.
でもみんな思ってますよ。あなたが殺したんだ。
My chest squeezed tightly, and I began to hallucinate that everything before my eyes had gone completely black. I was starting to doubt myself. Had I killed Nanami? No. That couldn't be true.
この人殺し。
She'd been writing something, but suddenly, Hasuki's hand stopped. She then slowly turned the clipboard toward me. Suddenly, I realized I was sitting in the same bed, in the same hospital room. I wasn't sure why the sheet I'd just ripped off me was still on me. Asuki-san, who had been standing right beside the bed, had disappeared before I could even blink. Wiping the greasy sweat off my forehead, I looked around the hospital room once again. After a couple of knocks, Husky-san entered the room, and her eyes widened slightly upon seeing me.
あら、西条さん、目が覚めたんですね。
Yeah, why isn't her mouth moving?
A gentle smile accompanied her as she said that. I stiffened up, then looked away.
お体の調子はどうですか？
Not any better thanks to you. You're the worst nurse ever. You need to improve your bedside manner. Stop gaslighting your patients. You're gonna lose your job if you keep emotionally abusing people and murdering people. Like, you don't... Like, that's not gonna look very good on a resume, you know?
Kozue. Kozue.
Kozu-P. No. Did she give herself that nickname because she has piss-colored hair? Okay, negative. Okay, girls, get him.
I'd said it with good intentions in mind, but Senna simply took one look at me before ignoring the offer.
That's not like her Senna.
And And then, for some reason, she handed me a popsicle stick instead.
It says, whose eyes are those eyes?
She made no attempt to explain herself, either. I wasn't sure what she was expecting, since I wasn't exactly going to get ecstatic over a losing popsicle stick that didn't even belong to me. Was she just silently ordering me to toss it in the trash can near the convenience store or something? Considering it was her and all, it certainly was in the realm of possibility. Sona must have had a whole host of meek male subjects that she used to do her dirty work. She was pretty much insulting me to my face. But just the thought of what she'd do if I defied her scared me far too much, so I just bit my lip and put up with it.
私の勝ち。
Her gaze fixed on the sky that peeked between the buildings, Senna declared her supposed victory. With a sigh, I inadvertently looked down at the losing popsicle stick and gasped.
Yep.
What the hell was this?
先週出た渋谷限定品だ。ただの当たりより価値がある。
Senna had a smug expression on her face as she explained. Was she just trying to brag?
だから私の勝ち。
What the hell kind of competition had she even won? Besides, I didn't want anything to do with these winning sticks, especially with how in poor taste they were. I was tempted to snap the stick right in half on the spot, but I swallowed back my anger and returned it to Senna.
Okay. Neutral.
どこ行ったんだ？
さあ
No highly symbolic lingerie delusion for Takumi.
The window was open. Wind blew against the white curtains, sending them fluttering in the breeze. For some odd reason, it caught my eye ever since I'd come in the room. It felt like a negative delusion could start at any second. One where Ayase jumped from the rooftop and fell past that window. One where, if I looked down, I'd find her sprawled on the ground, covered in blood, and with gray matter scattered everywhere. I had to check. I couldn't bear the burning curiosity. As if possessed, my shaky legs moved step by step toward the window. I stood right by it. The sky was dyed in an evening glow. It was a crisp fall evening. What might have been below? The very picture of hell itself? With a gulp, I ever so slowly peeked out the window and down toward the ground. There was nothing out of the ordinary. I couldn't see Ayase's corpse anywhere. Guess I'd just been paranoid, but when I went to retract my head in relief, I noticed it.
Huh. Interesting.
On the window 1 story below, a single towel was waving in the wind. I assumed it was just a normal white towel, but words of some kind were scrawled on it in a dark blue lettering. Due to it flapping in the wind, I couldn't quite figure out what it said.
Whose eyes are those eyes? That's what it says.
Not that I really cared. The word scribble on some towels shouldn't have bothered me at all. But part of me still tried desperately to read it. And when I looked closer, I saw.
Husky, I know you're down there, you bitch.
Whose eyes are those eyes? I was speechless. I couldn't look away.
Husky, stop waving around a towel. What? How do you think you're gonna terrify Takumi with a towel that has words on it? Like, we're at the point where people are making merchandise of this crap. You're such a loser, Husky. You're such a loser.
The towel was suddenly pulled right back through the window, almost as if they had known I'd been looking at the towel at that very moment.
Yes, she did.
No, that couldn't be possible. Nobody I knew could have been in the room below me. Nobody I knew had been hospitalized.
But there is a nurse, you know.
Even if someone other than a patient were stalking me from the room below, it would have been impossible for them to predict I would peer down from here, right? There were no surveillance cameras in the room. It was all just a coincidence. It had to be. What if, maybe, just maybe, it wasn't?
I mean, could also just be a delusion.
Terror creeping up my back, I turned back toward the entrance. There was nobody there. The door was shut. I immediately pulled myself away from the window, feeling incredibly uneasy. Don't think about it. Try as hard as you can not to. This was a coincidence. A simple coincidence. That was what I told myself.
見ろよタク、変な本があるぞ。
Yeah. Black ball. Husky-san being weird. Oh no, she's actually grim, and I didn't realize that. And on the 7th page, what she wrote back in, that's what she wrote! Back when Takumi woke up in the hospital. Which, yeah. Kind of just shows that she was indeed just screwing with him. Gladiol. Okay. Negative. Let us stream of Gladiol. The Almighty.
He went to go right past me, but just before he did, he put his hand on my shoulder.
俺もうついていけねえや。あとは任せた。
With a sigh of exasperation, he made to leave the room. Ayase had finally said something to Misumi-kun, but she'd done so with a grim expression on her face. I wasn't sure why.
逃がさないわよ。
あ？何何？俺の相手してくれんの？
ええ、そうね。あなたが邪神王の使いだということは分かっている。
What even? Another part of her insane storyline. Misumi-kun looked pretty annoyed at being dragged into Ayase's bullshit. A pretty justified response, to be honest. It wasn't even funny as a joke. However, Ayase seemed quite serious.
匠。
As she called my name, Ayase took out something that looked like a fruit knife from beneath the bedsheets and threw it over to me. Surprised, I hurriedly went to catch it. While the knife fortunately had a guard on it, I still came close to cutting my hand.
そいつを殺すのよ。
do it yourself. You got a sword.
Him? When Ayase said that, she was looking at Misumi-kun. What kind of batshit insane plot twist was this? Bewildered, I held the knife with a trembling hand.
おいおい。殺せときたか。いくらなんでも、それはひどくね？まあ、岸本に嫌われてんのは分かってたけどよ。まさか面と向かってそんなこと言われるとは思わなかったぜ。それで、なんだっけ。グラビトーン？邪神？何のことだか、俺にはさっぱりわかんねえんだけどな。たく、とりあえずナイフを置けよ。岸本の妄想に付き合うな。
妄想じゃないわ。匠、 そいつの言葉を信じないで。
Misumi-kun's expression stiffened, and he took a step away from Ayase.
お前異常だぜ。
匠、早く殺すのよ。でないとグラジオールに君の存在が筒抜けになってしまうわ。
With the knife in my hand, I slowly placed it back on Ayase's lap.
匠、
君の言ってることはめちゃくちゃだよ。
That's a new expression, I think.
She looked at me with sad eyes. It doesn't matter how you look at me. How the hell do you expect me to kill Misumi-kun? This had nothing to do with Gladiol or whatever. Killing someone would make me a criminal. That's not gonna happen. Simple as that.
さすが親友。お前なら俺を選ぶって信じてたぜ、タク。
Misumi-kun clapped his hand on my shoulder. And then, casually as could be, without a care in the world, he grasped the knife on Ayase's lap.
じゃあな、電波オンな。
And then, without stopping even once, he removed the guard from the knife before immediately slashing outward. Blood spurted from her neck with blistering speed. Some splashed against my face. It was very, very hot. Ayase's eyes were wide with shock. She was looking straight at me. Her body then slowly collapsed upon the bed. The pure white sheets were stained crimson.
やっちまったな、タク。今のが最後のチャンスだったんだぜ。グラジオール復活を阻止するための。な。
Oh, man. I don't know why. I can't take it seriously when it's Misumi.
I couldn't even scream.
They made a whole CG for this delusion.
岸本の方だったって。
Well, then again, they already have for other stuff. Why am I talking like that's an exception?
As he said that, Misumi-kun got on top of Ayase's splayed-out body. Then, without even a hint of hesitation, he gouged out her eyeballs. Yet, her body didn't move. It didn't even twitch. Misumi-kun turned toward me. With a cruel smile, he murmured,
その目誰の目？
Oh! Found all the whose eyes are those? Huh. So there's an achievement for seeing literally every instance of somebody saying whose eyes are those eyes.
When I came to, Ayase, who should have been covered in blood, was simply sitting on the bed, completely unharmed. Misumi-kun was nowhere in sight. Had that been a delusion?
Well, I don't know. There's still a chance that he's actually evil. I'm still 50-50 on it.
I let out a deep sigh of relief. That had definitely been a nasty one.
But, well, we gotta have somebody else who's responsible for the other murders besides Suwa and Hosky.
Feeling guilty, I apologized to Ayase inside my head. But since she couldn't hear my thoughts, Ayase just went on with her schizo babbling.
Whoosh. It's me, Remy, back in the lobby, hanging out with the bros.
なんだ、それじゃあ必死にごまかそ
Nothing
うと
else
して
in
たの
this
が
chapter matters.
剣を見せてって。
Wow, Remy, that's pretty forward.
No way. Could she really see D-Swords too? For a split second, that was my assumption.
And your assumption was correct.
Only for it to immediately be proven wrong.
ほら、タクが前にケンのこと話してたでしょ。だから私も見たいなって。
それでひっぱたかれたのか？意味わからん。岸本って剣の話ばっかしてるのにな。さっきも病室に入った途端グラディエーターがどうとか言い出してマジビビったぜ。
Okay, we're finally at the start of this route, I assume. Who's it gonna be? I honestly don't know. Maybe Ayase. I'm not too sure. Shinsen Station of the Inokashira line was one stop from Shibuya, with it taking only about a minute to arrive there by train. Let me make a save so that I don't have to do all that all over again. Wait. Crying Sky. Yep. Chapter name is different. Okay, then. The station itself was situated within an underground tunnel, resulting in the only natural light being the beams sweeping in from the opening at the end of the platform. Due to the earthquake, all of the lights had gone out, enveloping the area in a far thicker darkness than usual. Carrying Orihara Kozue's body on her back, Aoi Sena set foot onto the platform. There had been no need to buy a ticket. Not a single step. Yeah, we did this. Yeah, we already explained this. Yeah.
やっと見つけた。
Oh! Okay. Let me read back there, though. Rather than just Hatano, it is Hatano and Norose. Oh boy, what is gonna happen? One was at home. Oh, whoops, sorry, I forgot to read that. At the end of her gaze, in the dark recesses of the platform, two figures stood shoulder to shoulder. One was a tall man wearing an expensive suit. His whole body exuded an aura of refinement. He had excellent posture. I don't know, would you really call that excellent posture? He's kind of got his neck tilted to the side and practically looks like his arm is dislocated. And a relaxed smile on his lips. That's not really a smile. The other was a homeless man, clad in filthy rags. His hair was unkempt and shaggy, and his face was covered in stubble. The man's head was hung low, rendering his expression difficult to accurately discern. Their appearances contrasted violently, but the two men did nothing but stand silently on the dim, empty station platform. Senna felt nothing but raw hatred toward the both of them, Norose Genichi and Hatano Issei. Even if she wanted to forget about them, she would never have been able to.
母さんと妹を殺した。その二人が揃ってお出迎えか。
A long time ago, her mother and little sister had met their gruesome ends right before her eyes. And the people before her now were the very people who had killed them.
私の本意ではなかったんだ、セナ。
With his head still hung low, the homeless man Hatano let out a desolate murmur.
あの実験を止めようとした。だが、私一人では動き出した歯車は止められなかった。この男が。
Hatano took a fleeting glance at Norosei's expression. Norosei said nothing. His composed attitude remained unmoving.
この男が実験の継続を指示した。私はあの結果を望んではいなかった。悪いのはこの男、ノロセなんだ。
Or maybe this is a Senna route.
分かってくれ、セナ。
Senna's repugnance billowed as she listened to his words of repentance.
お前は母さんと妹を見殺しにした。それが厳然とした事実だ。悔いているならどうして逃げた？
世界を守るためだ。
でたらめを。
親に逆らうのは感心しませんね。
It was the first time Norosei had spoken.
確かに君の家族が悲劇的な結末を迎えたのは私が指示した結果です。もう十分データは取れていたのでね。実に有意義な実験でした。
有意義？
Senna swiftly reel-booted the D sword she held in her hands. The resulting shockwave stirred her long black hair.
この男を殺せ、セナ。こいつが元凶だ。
Okay, something's wrong here. Something is very wrong here.
言われなくても。
Senna had already kicked powerfully off the platform. Without brandishing her sword, she closed the distance. A phenomenal display of her explosive power. Is this like Norosei tricking her into killing her own father? Her target, Norosei Genichi. She mowed him down with her D-sword. Even the air was torn to shreds. Norosei's head tore free and flew away from its source. Senna followed it with her eyes, when suddenly, Norosei's flying head distorted mid-flight and transformed into that of her father's. Yep! Norosei being Norosei. His tunnel of delusions, as I call it. Stunned, she looked at the headless body that stood before her. It had been wearing a suit only a moment ago, but now it donned the clothes of a homeless man. Devoid now of any and all power, it tumbled back lifelessly. Eyes wide as could be, Senna looked at Hatano, who had been standing just beside it. He turned to face her in return, his bearded face warped into a vicious sneer, his face contorted as if a mosaic had been affixed to it, and his body contorted in a similar fashion. The very next instant, Hatano took on the face of a man Senna did not recognize. His age, his face, his aura, they all differed greatly from her father's. So now, Suwa is instead even more of a bastard. Damn. Senna was overwhelmed with confusion. She took another unblinking look at the head she had just severed. After tracing an arc as it flew, it had splattered blood upon where it struck the concrete. It was her father's face. It was her father's head. Senna could not look away. An illusion made by a delusion. Realizing that, Senna's breathing grew shallow and ragged.
セナちゃんさ。
The man who was supposed to be her father, the man who was now a completely different person, spoke Senna's name in a far too friendly way.
君が今やったことって結局お父さんと同じっすよね。
It was the result she had longed for all throughout these past 6 months. It should have been. It should have been. And yet, Senna was assailed by a fierce inner turmoil. Her father, who had been reduced to just a head, had his eyes trained directly on Senna.
父親の首跳ねて殺すってえぐいな。
父さん。
Still not comprehending why she was experiencing such psychological shock, Senna heard something tear deep within her ears, inside her ears.
I heard a voice, the scream of Senna's mind, a scream which cursed reality, a scream which emulated madness. I followed that cry all the way to Shinsen Station. But by the time I got there, it was already too late. When I set foot onto the dim platform, the faint smell of blood hung in the air. CoZ was lying against the wall, unconscious. And there on the platform was Senna, sunk to the ground, with her back facing me. Her head was pointed down, and her long hair was covering her face. I couldn't see her expression. Right beside her was a headless body. It then occurred to me that the round object lying a few meters away was the head that had once been attached to it. It was Hatano-san. The moment I realized that, I bit my lip hard.
こいつはラッキーっすね。
A man was standing on the tracks. Contrasting heavily with the suit he was wearing, he had a rucksack on his back. A harsh mechanical noise was emanating from it. Suwa Mamoru, a detective from the Metropolitan Police Department's Investigation Division. This wasn't the first time I'd run into him, and I knew exactly what he'd done.
もともとは目障りな畑の親子を処分しに来たんすけどね。西条くん、君が自分から火に飛び込んできてくれて感謝感激っす。君を見かけたら捕まえろってことになってるんすよ。
Yep, same dialogue so far.
内緒っす。
He smiled a flippant smile, one that was somewhat reminiscent of Detective Bond's.
But yeah, the one key difference, act. The sly smile was who he truly was.
のろせの居場所。
西条くんさ、口の利き方に気をつけてほしいっすね。自分の方が年上っすよ。
Oops.
With my eyes still trained on Suwa, I cautiously jumped down from the platform and onto the tracks. Senna was still motionless, so I ended up effectively shielding her back.
バンっていう人を殺したのはあんただ。刑事のくせに
君には言われた。
あんたみたいなやつに警護。
あのさ、お前に言われたくねえって言ってるんだよ。お前も人殺しだろ。違うとは言わせないぞ。お前は葉月志乃を殺した。
I mean,
俺は今すぐにでもお前をぶち殺したいんだよ。
eh, she was your girlfriend, I guess.
Husky Shino, the nurse who had been the real new-gen culprit. She and Suwa were both disciples at the Cosmic Church of the Divine Light. Was that all? I gulped audibly.
信仰の救いのためにそれは自制するが、その代わり。
So, did he not know about it in the other route?
俺が責任持って心を殺してやる。
I attempted to brandish my D sword, but it was obvious that I wouldn't be able to do anything. It was just a reflex, and just like I had expected, I was unable to do anything at all. I found myself in a dimly lit room. In that room was a single man, talking to another much older man through a large screen.
諏訪君、君と葉月君にやってもらいたい修行があるのだ。
Oh, so the old man's the one who, the old man's the second generational founder? I assumed the voice belonged to an old man.
はい、なんなりと。
人を殺してもらいたい。
相手は誰ですか？
相手が何者かに意味はない。
と申しますと？
特に決まりはないと言っておこう。殺す対象、殺し方はこちらで指示する。我らが進めているプロジェクトノアを完成させるため、西条匠という少年に心理的揺さぶりをかける必要があるのだ。
揺さぶりですか？
恐怖を与えるのだ。しかしその少年の秘めた力は強大だ。直接的な行動はこちらの身に危険を及ぼしかねん。
Guess it was the second generation founder that gave him the instructions.
故に連続猟奇殺人事件を起こす。
Seriously? That's it?
たったそれだけのために殺人を。
不満かね？
シノもその修行に参加しなければなりませんか？
当然だ。俺は信仰の理想郷を築くためであり、同時に君たちに信仰の救いをもたらすだろう。
そういうことであれば。
時に葉月君はお腹に君の子を授かっていたな。予定日はいつかね？
あと2ヶ月ほどです。
その子供を信仰の救いのために捧げたまえ。
殺せとおっしゃいますか？
I guess they're indeed confirming that it was Sua's child.
聖なる犠牲だよ。子を捧げれば君と葉月君には大いなる信仰の救いがもたらされるだろう。
I guess that's why he's so fanatically into doing it at that point, because, like, he's already sacrificed his child. He's gotta see it through.
大いなる信仰の救い。かしこまりました。すべて教祖様の仰せのままに。きっとシノも喜びます。信仰の救いあれ。
Suddenly, an insanely powerful wind blew against me. It pushed me backward hard, nearly knocking me over. I tried desperately to brace myself against it.
So, are we just saying that, like, Sua did literally every murder that Hosky didn't do?
However, my body didn't do what I asked. Instead, my body curled up into a ball on the spot. My body wouldn't listen to me. It moved by itself. It was like my body wasn't my own. Before I knew it, my surroundings had gone completely dark. When I looked below, I saw the nightscape spreading out before me. If I didn't know any better, I could have easily mistaken all the lights as a sky full of stars. I suddenly realized that I was standing somewhere ridiculously high up. Beside me were 4 men and women I'd never met. No, I knew one of them. Yua. For some reason, though, she wasn't wearing her glasses.
Oh no.
No, that wasn't Yua. It was Mia, Yua's younger twin sister, the one who should have died a month ago. Which meant this was the roof of Cornelius' tower. My body wasn't my own. I was wearing a school uniform I didn't recognize. Even the body type was brawnier than my own. And when I saw that there were 4 other people huddled together on the ground, wailing loudly as tears poured down their faces, it led me to guess what exactly was happening. This body that my consciousness had invaded belonged to one of the 5 victims who died in the first New Gen case, the group dive. Through no will of my own, my field of vision, ever so slowly, panned over toward the helipad. Shogun had filmed the video, so he should have been here somewhere.
Darth Spider!
There. Shogun was wearing a Darth Spider helmet on his head, and a black cloak draped over his body.
Who I suppose by this point is supposed to be Suwa. Seems like it was just always him.
When Shogun had cornered me at O-Front, he'd been wearing something similar. But was this guy actually Shogun? No. His legs were slightly peeking out from his black cloak. He was very clearly wearing slacks. In addition, his legs were thick, like those of a healthy adult male's. They weren't the skinny, pathetic legs that belonged to Shogun, to Nishijo Takumi. No bones protruded from them. And when I looked closer, I realized that even his sitting height was completely different. The cloak kept them hidden, but his shoulders also looked fairly broad.
Yeah, I guess it's just Suwa.
At the very least, the man wasn't Nishijo Takumi, and he wasn't carrying a video camera. Suddenly, from the darkness spreading out behind the fake Shogun, I heard footsteps, dragging footsteps. Not just one set of them. It was an hallucination. The strange footsteps belonged to many, many people. There had to be several dozen unknown entities lurking in the darkness. The footsteps hadn't been in the video that had been uploaded on YouTube. Not to mention there shouldn't have been any way for this many people to have gained access to the helipad. Then, what the hell was this sound? The 4 others beside me continued to wail in grief. Through no will of my own, my body similarly let out a cry, and then began to tremble. Something was coming closer. If I was in a low-budget horror movie, these dragging footsteps would have been zombies. Zombies with both arms hanging down limply in front of them. Their decaying bodies slowly swaying as they walked. But that was just in the movies. In reality, and especially in 21st century Tokyo, there was no way a horde of zombies could possibly just show up like that. But if that was the case, then what were they? My heart felt like it was going to seize up in terror. I wanted to look away. But the owner of the body I had invaded refused to do so. Finally, the unknown entities began to emerge from the darkness. They choked all remaining space on the helipad, sealing off our escape route. I wasn't sure if it was right to call it anticlimactic, but the ones who appeared were perfectly normal people. They wore suits, school uniforms, parkas, and They were of different ages and sexes, but they were still all people you'd expect to find walking around Shibuya at night. Save for one thing. Every one of the nearly 100 people there was gripping some sort of bladed object. None of them said a word, nor even tried to. All that could be heard was their raspy, nasal breaths pulling together into an abysmal cacophony. For some reason, I couldn't see their expressions very well. It was like their faces were made of paint that had been blurred by water. Their faces were blurry and disfigured. Were their faces actually deformed? Or was my sight itself the problem? I didn't know. They were sluggishly yet steadily coming toward us. They were like robots that had been programmed with a single mission. I thought that perhaps the fake Shogun was ordering them around, but that didn't seem to be the case. Every once in a while, he would move his wheelchair forward slightly, only to freeze once again and not move a single inch after that. The 5 people had all been cornered, and now they had nowhere to run. In order to escape from the nearly 180-meter high rooftop, they had no choice but to dive. Grasping their blades, the mob grew closer. Closer and closer, little by little. Eventually, they were within reaching distance. And yet, even in these final moments, they all stayed completely silent. As well as this, even as they drew nearer and nearer, they didn't make any attempt to jump on any of the victims. But their strange behavior only served to make them all the more terrifying. Terrifying enough to make me think, I need to get out of here, even if it means I have to jump.
その目誰の目
I heard an unexpected voice. The voice of the real Shogun, Nishijo Takumi. However, I hadn't heard it from the man wearing the Darth Spider helmet, but from overhead. And it seemed like I hadn't been the only one to hear it. As if they'd rehearsed it, the 5 cornered people all stood up, joined hands with one another, and looked up at the night sky. Naturally, only the starry sky spread across the night. Shogun was nowhere to be found. Mind reading.
その目誰の
My field of vision slowly panned. And then I saw something strange. Even though the nightscape should have been the only thing spreading out below me, there were doors. I saw a long flight of stairs stretching downward. It led right to the roof of the adjacent building, outside the city, which was across the Metropolitan Highway. But the building nestled up close to Cornelius Tower. A building nestled close to Cornelius Tower. A fact that didn't make any sense, because no such building existed in reality. Even so, the 5 people held no suspicions that the staircase was delusionary. All they thought about was how they had been saved by it. These thoughts, these emotions, were conveyed distinctly to me, and then, with only them in mind, they stepped forward. Hand in hand. They had yet to let go even once. It was exactly how the group dive had ended. None of them had possessed any desire to dive. So, when the staircase they had all been so convinced was real disappeared, the feeling of empty air deeply shocked them, and as they fell, they screamed from the deepest depths of their hearts. Falling. Wind pressure violently assaulted my body. The shrieks of the girl next to me emulated the howls of the most terrifying of beasts. She clutched my hand so tightly, her nails dug into my flesh. The time it took for us to fall those 180 meters felt like an eternity. The dark earth rushed toward us with incredible speed. Our surroundings were so dark, I started to hallucinate about falling into a never-ending abyss, one that endlessly sucked me down deeper and deeper. And then the bodies of 5 people collapsed with the earth. With a sickening crunch, they were pulverized. The pain struck without me expecting it. A single blow that led straight to death. The impact felt like my entire body had exploded and then been ground into a fine powder from the inside out. I felt the sensation of my heart violently contracting from the shock, and then my consciousness was severed. My eyes were forced open, and a new scene burst forth in front of me. I was walking down Tamagawa Dori. My body was completely intact, yet the sensation of crashing into the ground remained distinct. Through no will of my own, I was walking down the street as if it were any other day. This body was more in shape than my own. This wasn't me. I had a terrible feeling about this. Suddenly, I noticed a strange man walking toward me, and when I saw him, I was forced to acknowledge that my terrible feeling had been warranted. The man passed me. He was wearing a fairly normal suit, but on his head, he had a Darth Spider helmet. It was all too surreal. There wasn't anyone else around. I wanted to run away as soon as possible, and yet, despite my wishes, the owner of the body my consciousness had invaded looked over their shoulder at the man he had just passed. I'm assuming that this is the second victim he kidnapped for Halski. Darth Spider was right behind me. He was so close, I could almost feel his breath. And then, bursting out of my blind spot, his fist blew straight into my stomach. All the strength left my body, and my vision went black. Not long after I lost consciousness, I began to feel an intense, searing pain spreading throughout my abdomen. Yep, second victim. When I opened my eyes, I was in an operating room. Wearing only white scrubs, Husky Shino was standing in front of me. Her scrubs were wide open, revealing her bloodied abdomen. Even though her face was a sickly pale, she looked at me with a gentle smile. In her hand was a scalpel she slowly laid against my stomach. She applied some pressure, and with a slight ripping sound, a small incision appeared on my skin. Blood spurted from the wound, dancing through the air before landing on Hazuki Shino's face. And yet, despite that, the same bright smile stayed plastered on her face. I watched in horror and pain as she slowly sliced me open. I had seen this scene once before, back when I read Hazuki's memories. The man-child case. The pain in my stomach was becoming unbearable. Screaming and sobbing, I tried to escape somehow by thrashing around, but my limbs were all fastened to the bed. I was unable to move. Any movement would lead to the pain in my abdomen growing far more intense.
信仰の救いをあなたに
With her hand resting upon my cleanly sliced open skin, Hazuki began poking around in the gushing wound with her fingers. That alone pierced me with enough agony to shatter my mind. I could very clearly feel the sensation of her fingers writhing around inside me. And then, just as I had seen in her memories, Husky forcefully widened the wound from both sides. The sensation of skin and flesh tearing. The lack of anesthesia left the pain raw and unfiltered, causing me, along with the owner of the body, to lose consciousness, only to be woken up immediately after by the overwhelming pain. But Husky kept forcefully winding the wound all the same. The details no longer mattered to me, such as where it hurt, or where specifically on my body the pain was erupting from. I hallucinated all my nerve endings being pierced with searing hot needles. I passed out again, but I couldn't escape. The pain mercilessly forced my consciousness back awake. I let my body writhe in pain. I found myself thinking that if it would release me from this suffering, I would be willing to bite my tongue off, but just as I thought that, I saw something. There, in Husky's hand, was a blood-soaked fetus, something that served only to make her smile all the more revolting. This woman was well and truly insane. She took the corpse of the fetus she had removed from her own body, and then plunged it deep inside my abdomen. Her hand and the fetus she was gripping tightly in it shoved aside my organs, gouged out my flesh, and gnawed deeper and deeper into me. I began to vomit blood, but even though it threatened to suffocate me, gargling screams arose from my drowning throat without end. Perhaps due to the pain overloading my brain, my head felt strangely foggy. And yet, despite that fogginess, the pain refused to get any more bearable, and I began to comprehend less and less of what was happening. Pain was all that ruled my mind. Husky then withdrew her hand from my stomach and nodded in satisfaction. Then, as if attending to a patient, she spoke a few soft words. But the very second she finished speaking, she suddenly lost consciousness, and her body collapsed to the floor. At around the same time, someone else entered the operating room. The sound of his shoes reverberated throughout it, but I had no interest in whoever it was. The sole thing I focused on was continuing my bawling and screaming, unable to feel anything but agony. Seeing the unnatural expansion of my stomach, I fell into a panic. Along with the pain, I began to feel an itchiness. It was itchy. Really, really itchy. I wanted to scratch it, but my hands were tied to the bed, so I couldn't. Suddenly, a shadow obstructed my view. It was Darth Spider, appearing from almost nowhere. He picked up Husky in his arms, exited the operating room with her, then came back alone a few moments later. He was carrying a sewing needle and some nylon thread. What he was thinking, I didn't know until he slowly began to stitch together the wound on my stomach. The pain was practically nothing compared to the pain of having a foreign object shoved inside me, nor the agony of having my flesh ripped open. Darth Spider's sewing was incredibly sloppy. Even a grade schooler could have done better. Every time he pulled at the fishing line, it chafed against the chasms he'd opened in my skin. The itchiness grew more intense. An unbearable itchiness. An itchiness that seemed to well up from deep inside me. Itchy, itchy, itchy. I wanted to scratch it. If he'd just let me, I wouldn't even mind if I died. The tingling itch combined with the pain. And yet, even more than the pain, the itch threatened to drive me completely insane. Due to my mental state, it took me a while to notice that the scenery had changed once again.
So, if I recall correctly, they said that the man-child victim specifically died after ripping open their own stomach, which, yeah, that seemed to imply. Which would only have been possible if Sua loosened the restraints. Anyways, I assume this is the crucifixion murder.
Due to my mental state, it took me a while to notice that the scenery had changed once again. I felt slight relief from the pain and the itchiness, but the sensation hadn't completely disappeared. Even now, as I stumbled through Shinsen, I felt an itch in the center of my body, but along with that pain, I felt the sensation of a foreign object in my abdomen, as well as the pain of a needle weaving in and out of my body. They all remained as distinct, lingering discomforts, continuing to torment my mind even now. I was on an unlit, rarely used road. As I walked down it, I saw a figure coming toward me. The road was so narrow, we would have had to turn sideways in order to even pass each other. But when I saw what the figure looked like, my body turned to ice. Yet again, it was the man dressed as Darth Spider. We passed each other. Darth Spider didn't give any kind of reaction. My heart was beating out of my chest, and then something surfaced in my mind. An incredibly compulsive urge, one that made no sense for me to feel. A crusty old fuck had been hitting on my girl. It pissed me off like you wouldn't believe. I wanted to kill him. That extremely abrupt feeling drove me forward. The face of my girl was foggy in my memories. I couldn't remember her very well, to the point that where I wasn't sure if she even existed in the first place.
Oh, did he force Komeda to kill, He forced Komeda to kill, the victim of the crucifixion case?
And yet, the crusty old fuck who'd been hitting on my girl was crystal clear in my mind. I'd seen his face before. He was the victim of the crucifixion case. My memory launched forward, placing me in a dark, narrow alley. An alley I knew all too well. The scene of the crucifixion. Right in front of me was the victim of that case. He was a middle-aged man, and my hands were tightly wrapped around his neck.
Yep.
His body convulsed violently. Bubbles frothed from his mouth, and his eyes rolled into the back of his head. Upon learning what it felt like to have someone's life disappear in my hands, I went slightly cold. Eventually, the man stopped moving. When Komeda, the perpetrator of this case, confirmed he was dead, I released my hands from his neck and let him collapse to the ground.
Murder by proxy.
I gave him a single parting kick in the side, then immediately went to leave. I heard a voice, and when I turned around, the man who was supposed to be dead was getting up. Eyes still rolled into the back of his head, and then he reached for me. With a yelp, I punched him, knocking him to the ground. But even though his movements were sluggish, he kept getting back up no matter how many times I hit him. I grabbed his neck again. Just as I'd done earlier, but this time with even more force. I wrung my hands tightly around his neck. I put all the strength I had into my grip, applying enough pressure to snap the bones in his neck. He soon stopped moving again. This time, I put my ear up to his mouth, and once I made absolutely sure he wasn't breathing, I let him drop. I watched his body for a while. And then, somehow, the man who should have died twitched violently and began rising back to his feet. The expression on his face was one clearly fitting of a dead man's, and didn't change even slightly as he moved. Rising up from the ground, he started coming toward me. As I stumbled back in fear, I stepped on something. Startled, I looked down on my feet. A large number of cross-shaped stakes were scattered around the street. I had to stop him from moving anymore. I had to drive a stake into the monster I was facing. If I didn't, I'd be screwed. Overwhelmed by the impending danger, I shoved the man against the wall before he could finish getting up. I picked up a stake. And before I knew it, I was gripping a hammer in my other hand.
Well, that explains why Suwa didn't just magic them. He made somebody else do it.
Once again, I found myself in an operating room, but it wasn't the man-child case again. Despite knowing that, the pain from that experience, coupled with the sensation of a foreign object in my stomach, continued to torture me. It ground away at my each and every nerve ending. I could see two figures in my field of vision. They both were still as could be, staring in my direction with bated breath. One of them was Darth Spider, and the other was Hazuki Shino. Her scrubs weren't soaked in blood this time, which is what had led me to believe that this was a different case than the man-child one. I was lying in a bed. A needle for an IV was embedded in my arm. However, nothing was being injected into me. The liquid in the tube was flowing backward, and the liquid was blood.
I guess Suwa is just the primary culprit.
My blood, the blood that circulated within this body, was being sucked out through the IV. At the end of the tube, there was only an extremely dirty bucket. It was filled to the brim with blood. The blood continued to fall into the bucket. Drip, drip, drip. My head felt fuzzy. I was incredibly dizzy. I was assailed by an intensely peculiar situation, one where a pleasant feeling, like my consciousness was floating far away, intermixed with the pain and itchiness left over from the man-child case. Then, as if showing off to me, Darth Spider and Hazuki tenderly embraced each other like lovers. And the two supported one another. Hazuki's face couldn't have looked happier. I couldn't understand how she could make a face like that, while in the middle of creating the dried-up corpse from the vampire case. But before I could think about why I couldn't understand it, the pain grew far more intense. My throat was sapped of all moisture, my vision gradually darkened, and my consciousness slowly grew thinner and thinner, until eventually it evaporated completely. I then realized this was a vicarious experience. I was being forced to experience the series of new-gen murders vicariously. I was facing the pain of each case, the fear, one by one.
So yeah, Suwa did a majority of the murders, but a gigalomaniac did the 7th case. Pretty sure, anyway.
If that was true, then there were still 3 remaining. Realizing that, my despair pulled me down even deeper.
We know Hazuki killed Dr. Takashina, and the 6th case, that's still up in the air, but I assume at this rate we're just gonna say that Suwa did them all.
Sensei.
Someone called out to me, and I came back to myself. I should have been in the operating room, but I was standing in the hallway of some hospital.
Takashino sensei.
Unsurprisingly, through no will of my own, my body turned around. Behind me was Hazuki Shino, accompanied by a somewhat somber expression.
折り入ってご相談があるんですが、ここだと人目につきますから、こっちに。
Her voice apologetic, Hazuki entered an examination room. My mind screamed, "Don't go!" at Dr. Takashina, but unsurprisingly, my voice didn't reach him. It was currently after hours at the hospital, so no one else was in the exam room. Hazuki walked steadily toward the center of it. I, Dr. Takashina, followed her without even the slightest doubt. And then she abruptly stopped. Just as I wondered what she was doing, a man wearing something black on his head leapt out from the darkness.
Yep, Suwa's just there every time. Every time.
I reeled back, startled, only for the man to shove something akin to a piece of gauze over my mouth. And just like that, my consciousness was stolen away. An ear-piercing noise rang through my head. My skull was vibrating violently. But it wasn't just vibrating. It was being shaved to dust. I felt that sensation incredibly clearly. The sound died down. When I opened my eyes, I was in the operating room once again. Like a collection of numerous eyes, many lights bore down on me from the ceiling. They shone down on me brilliantly, illuminating my
頭
face.
蓋骨が外れましたよ、先生。まあ、先生の硬膜、とても綺麗だわ。
In a thoroughly enchanted tone, Hosky said those words, picked up a pair of scissors, and used them to cut away the solid membrane covering my brain. I felt this sensation directly, and immediately following it, I was seized by a sickening, almost frustrating feeling. I, or rather Dr. Takashina, hadn't known that Hosky had the ability to perform surgery, let alone open brain surgery. As a result of this, my mind erupted with surprise, followed by me noticing that my body was incapable of moving due to the anesthesia. Husky wasn't alone in the operating room. The man wearing black from before, Darth Spider, was there too. But he said nothing. He simply stood in place, not moving a muscle.
人は脳死状態でも人工呼吸器なしで1週間以上生きたっていう事例があるんです。ご存知ですか？
Without losing the gentle smile on her face, Husky whispered something strange in my ear.
それってつまり脳がなくてもしばらくは生きていられるっていうことですよね。先生はどれくらい生きられるかしら。
We just kind of have a Bonnie and Clyde situation here.
I shuddered. An unfathomable terror rose up from within me. Husky held a spoon in front of my eyes.
Only a spoonful!
Only for it to leave my vision soon
高階
after.
先生に信仰の救いあれ。
Yep, just a serial killer power couple.
Without warning, I felt a foreign object being forced into me inside my head. And not inside my head in the sense that it wasn't really happening. Something had literally been forced inside my head. I felt the sensation of something entering me, then moving around. There was no pain. However, it was more than enough to fill me with disgust and terror. Husky shook off a piece of something onto a tray sitting beside me. Only moving my eyes, I looked over to try and see what it was. It was a beautiful pink color, but it had been smashed into a pulp. It reminded me of a soft salmon roe. Realizing it was my brain, my sense of dread peaked. I pleaded with her. Please stop. But Husky's hand didn't stop moving. Instead, her expression turned to one of pure ecstasy. Her cheeks were stained a bright scarlet as she carelessly dug through my Dr. Takashina's brain, taking even more of it with every scoop. Suddenly, I was having fun. I wanted to laugh. Suddenly, I harbored an intense hatred. Suddenly, I felt happy. Suddenly, a furious lust burned within me, rising up and constricting my chest. She stirred my brain, stirring my emotions along with it. Emotions different to what I myself felt boiled up within me. Because of these emotions, my mind, heart, and soul were drifting away from the consciousness known as me, forcing me to confront the ambiguity of my own existence. As the mental rape that sought to deny my own existence tore my mind to shreds, I found myself walking under a railway overpass. If I went off the case order this time, it would be the finger food case. As I had expected would happen, my body was now a woman's. I was incredibly hungry. Perhaps the victim had been on a diet or something. I crossed paths with the man in the Darth Spider costume once again. Everywhere I went, he would show up. Considering how much his appearance stood out, why hadn't the police or mass media gotten anything on him at all? It was the first time Darth Spider had said anything. He pointed at my right hand as he spoke. It was a surreal spectacle. For some reason, I was holding 5 bare chickens. Oh gosh! Each one sticking out from the gaps between my fingers. He hypnotized her into eating her own hand, which is kind of what I thought happened, but still. Horrible to think about, and it was sewer every time. Warm-looking steam rose from them, as did the juicy aroma of cooked meat. Both things further stimulated my appetite. Saliva overflowed from my mouth. Unable to wait another second, I took a bite. A sharp pain shot through my finger, but I couldn't stop chewing. I had never had such incredible, delicious chicken in my life. Tons of juices escaped from the meat, dribbling down onto the pavement below. It was delectable. It was to die for. With the blink of an eye, I'd cleaned the skewers completely. Before I knew it, Darth Spider had disappeared. But it didn't matter much to me. I didn't even care about that strange man at all. I wanted to keep eating. My stomach cried out for more food. The fingers on my right hand throbbed with pain, but my hunger easily overrode it. Once again, I looked at my right hand, and that's when I realized I hadn't just been holding chicken skewers. I had also been carrying a large slab of meat. The glorious protein was still fastened to the bone, with its dripping juices staining the sleeves of my blouse a dark shade of red. When had I gotten my hands on this? How long had I had it for? That question, too, quickly became unimportant faced with my overwhelming hunger. I sank my teeth into the meat with all the strength I could muster. Excruciating pain. I ripped a chunk off, chewed it, tasted it, then gulped it down. The meat was tender, and it carried a fair amount of fat. I bit deeper. Both my hands and the area around my mouth were greasy with fat, but I didn't care. I'd never experienced such incredible flavor before. I tore the meat off the bone. Fat melted and gushed throughout my mouth, leaving a unique aftertaste. It hurt. For some reason, it hurt so bad I thought I would die, but I kept chewing. Compared to how large the bone was, there wasn't a lot of meat on it. It didn't take long for me to eat it all up. Finally, I licked off all the remaining tiny scraps of flesh that were left clinging to the bone. Every piece I set free, I suckled on, savoring the taste of meat and bone. The 5 slender bones protruding from the end weren't too hard. If I wanted to, I could bite them off without much trouble. I gnawed on the bones. A fierce pain ripped through me, a pain so intense I nearly collapsed on the spot. Tears streaming down my face, I gleefully slurped up all the remaining juices that were oozing out from inside the bones. I tore free one of the bones. The intense stimulus led me to crumple on the ground, rolling the bone around in my mouth as I did. Chomp, crunch, crunch, munch. When I went to swallow it, the bone got stuck in my throat, and I could no longer breathe. My legs swung around uncontrollably, kicking every which way. But before I knew it, a string had been wrapped around my ankles, stopping them in place. I could no longer move freely. Darth Spider was standing in front of me. Writhing in agony, the exposed bones of my right hand struck the ground. The impact sent violent, rippling waves of pain throughout my entire body, and I immediately pissed myself. And I would never open my eyes again. I opened my eyes in a dim back alley. The scenery was a little different from before. I was walking down the alley while leaning on a male Doku's shoulder. His face was horribly beaten. He looked like he was about to cry. The three of them, including me, were in awful condition. Their clothes were soaked with blood, their faces were ridiculously swollen, and they all had a number of chipped teeth. The person who'd done this was probably me. It was the three Dokuns that had beaten me up. And after that happened, they'd had their torsos torn apart and died. Once again, the man in the Darth Spider costume was there, standing at the end of where we were walking. The guy who was lending me his shoulder shouted at Darth Spider, but with his face as it was, any impact it could have had was pretty much halved. Yep, it was Nishijo. Yep, it's Suwa. The lame-o is indeed the new gen killer. And it, like, technically speaking, Suwa is the killer. Like, Hazuki definitely had a hand in the case of Dr. Takashina, and the man-child case probably delivered the killing blow, but, like, yeah. Well, I guess the best way to think about it is, like I said before, Bonnie and Clyde. Suwa was the primary culprit, but Hazuki was also a culprit and his main accomplice. Yeah. Plus she murdered her baby.
とぼけんなよこらてめえが言ったんじゃねえか西条をいたぶれば謝礼するとかってよ
One of them grabbed Darth Spider, holding him by the collar. He lifted him up, then hit his black helmet with his hand.
ふざけたもんかぶりやがって舐めてんのか外せ外せよこら
He forced the helmet off. I had already predicted the face that would be underneath it. And of course... Yep, there he was. Suwa Mamoru, looking completely unfazed. He was Hazuki Shino's accomplice, so he was another culprit behind New Gen. More like the culprit. Suwa rammed his knee deep into the stomach of the man grabbing him. His agile movement set him far apart from the reckless violence of the Dokuns.
ま、君たち3人とも用済みなんで。
The ground shook slightly.
なんだ今の
Behind Suwa, there was a presence, hiding in the darkness deep within the narrow alley. Something was there, rumbling with an eerie growl. From what I could tell, it wasn't a normal size. Even though we couldn't see it, the fierce bloodlust given off by that monster made all of our hearts seize up. What in the hell? Eventually, with footsteps that sounded like the very ground itself was rumbling, it showed itself. A literal, real-life monster. It was so unbelievably grotesque. Nothing else like it existed on this earth. Its brown, slimy skin glistened, and its gigantic head sat wedged between its shoulders. Its scarlet eyes shone brightly. Its mouth tore open on both sides, and its wrists were as thick as giant logs. The bipedal monster came up beside Suwa and opened its gaping maw wide as could be. Its rows of sharp teeth glinted, reflecting the burning glare of the streetlights. Its roar was like a low, dull growl, and yet it was more terrifying than anything I had ever heard. No beast could have ever hoped to compare. A roar with such ferocity, even the very souls of all who had heard it would tremble.
なんだこれ
スパークオーズが好きなんすよ。
Suwa was the only one who didn't seem bothered by the monster's appearance. On the contrary, he touched the monster's leg in blatant satisfaction, caressing it.
それに出てくるエイリアンス。
Another roar. The monster stepped one step forward to the frozen still trio. We tried to run, but there was no escape. We screamed for help, but there was no one around for kilometers. An overwhelming difference in power. The difference in potential between our species was too great. The three of us were helpless when faced with the beast before us. For the first time in our lives, we experienced fear from the deepest depths of our hearts. When someone is frightened like that, they fall silent, shrink back, and can't move even a single muscle. And so, the monster let out a single breath and swung its log-like arms. In an instant, as if they were merely ragdolls, the two of them were torn to shreds. Blood and viscera splattered across the alley, steam rising from the remnants. The severed corpses of the two men were then viciously tossed aside, skewering them on the handles of a nearby telephone pole.
あとは君だけっすよ。
I'm guessing Hosky's the one who stitched them up.
Sua's gaze pierced through me. I then realized that he was the one controlling the alien. I told myself that this was a delusion, but there was no point. In the face of absolute terror and overwhelming brutality, I simply slumped to the ground and pissed myself. All I could do after that was look up in a daze at the monster. And then... my torso was ripped apart. I felt this in a way no other human could ever possibly experience. And then, I stopped breathing.
I guess it wasn't a gigolomaniac. It was just Suwa.
How many times had I died vicariously? 3 times? 1 time? 7 times? 4 times? 2 times? 5 times? Human flesh tasted amazing. It hurt. No more. Darth Spider's outfit was surreal. It had to be a joke. So wait, how many times had I died? Wait, who died? Not me. I wasn't dead. That monster was seriously straight out of a horror movie. That monster was from, Suwa said it was from Spark Wars. So what? Human flesh tasted amazing. The bones, too. Why was Darth Spider black?
Racism!
Husky Sheena was sexy, but she was scary. She was crazy, but that was what made her sexy. If Darth Spider was made of bones, what was human flesh? How many times had I died in this prank? Or was it a prank? No, I wasn't dead. I was dead. Death, dead, dead.
It was real. No more. There were bones. Don't want to die. Black. I hate it. So, kill me.
Inside the rucksack Suwa wore on his back, the port let out a strange mechanical sound.
Suwa had long since grown accustomed to hearing it, and because of that sound, he had been able to murder the heart and mind of the gigolomaniac Nishijo Takumi. He lifted up a heartfelt prayer in gratitude. No matter what, Suwa would have never let Nishijo Takumi get away with what he had done, for the boy had driven Hazuki to suicide. Hazuki was Sua's childhood friend, whom he had lived with ever since he was born. Sua recalled what she had told him several years ago, back when he had decided to aspire to become a detective, and she to be a nurse.
私、守の子供を産みたい。
Both of their parents were disciples of the cosmic church of the divine light, and God and the glorious founder had been in their lives since birth. Sua and Hazuki had both been raised as children of the divine light, and their betrothal was the will of the glorious founder as well. And so, the two of them dutifully obeyed the teachings of the divine light, going so far as to offer the life of their child within Hazuki's womb. Even when Hazuki had given her life as a martyr, she had still believed she was doing the right thing. The 7 incidents, colloquially known as the New Generation Madness, Sua and Hazuki had caused them together. Partway through the incidents, Sua had grown quite flustered when his senior, Bon Yasuji, pointed out all the inconsistencies in the group dive photo. The video Sua had uploaded to YouTube had been recorded by projecting his memories. However, as it had been a few days since the incident at the time of recording, his memories had grown far less clear. He had not remembered the exact details of the scene, but since the video would not have been realistic without them, he had expressly gone to Cornelius Tower to review the photos hanging in the lobby. As a result, the video had indeed been made more realistic, but he had failed to choose the correct picture. He had no reason to suspect that something would look so strikingly different between the tower's completion and the present. However, thanks to the political influence of the glorious founder, all of that had been suppressed. It would be unwise to underestimate the power of the cosmic church of the divine light's glorious founder. He had many connections within the government, and he had even managed to weave several of his followers into management positions at the Metropolitan Police. No matter how much those like Bond cried out for justice, the natural conclusion to come to was that they would never be able to do a thing to harm him. Sua's position as a detective, Hazuki's position as a nurse. The support coming from the pressure the glorious founder placed on the police and the media. The NoAH system terminals provided by Nozomi Technology. Utilizing all of these tools, Sua and Hazuki had focused solely on killing. As for the reason they'd gone to such lengths to continue killing people, it had all been for the sake of breaking Nishijo Takemi. After they forced him to awaken as a gigalomaniac, they would kidnap him and harvest his code sample. Alternatively, by breaking the delusionary Nishijo Takemi, they would lure out the real Nishijo Takemi, capture him, and harvest his code sample. As long as it was Nishijo Takemi, it made no difference if he was real or a copy. That was why Sua had acted as Nishijo Takemi, using a wheelchair in his impersonation attempt. It had all been foretold by a divine prophecy bestowed upon Sua and Hazuki, one they had to fulfill no matter what sacrifices they would have to make during its course. And now, after sacrificing Hazuki, they had at last been able to overcome the trials given to them by God. The face of the woman who had loved him, and the one whom he had loved in return, rose in Sua's mind. He gritted his teeth in intense sadness, bearing the utmost grief. As he bathed in sorrow, Sua approached Nishijo Takemi, whose mind he had just slaughtered. At the edge of the platform, Aoi Senna cradled the head of her father, whom she herself had decapitated. She had fallen to her knees long ago, and now she sat alone atop the train tracks. Her chest dyed a deep crimson from her father's blood. She laughed. Drool slovenly seeped out from her mouth. Her eyes were unfocused. Suwa, now having composed himself, glanced at the girl. "She's already long gone," he muttered to himself inside his head. In any case, her usefulness had expired, and he felt no need to kill her. From the gigolomaniacs who had been gathered in Tokyo for Project NoAH, there were still two whose code samples had yet to be harvested. This number excluded Kusunoki Yua, for she was an irregularity that had never been suspected of being a gigolomaniac. The remaining targets were Nishijo Takumi and Orihara Kozue. It had to be the infallible guidance of the divine light that the two of them had fallen right into Suwa's hands, in the same location even. He had now received total proof that his actions had always been proper and just. For this, he held endless gratitude toward heaven and the glorious founder. Upon reaching Takumi, he dropped to his knees, grabbed the limp boy's upper arms, and attempted to forcefully pull him to his feet. But Takumi had already gone hollow. He was no longer capable of standing. His heart and mind had perished completely. Serves him right. With a snort, Suwa began to walk away, dragging Takumi by the arms along with him. Kosupi was shouting something painful, like she was hurting, maybe having fun. I blinked my eyes. Where's Kosupi? She was hanging from some weird crossbar. Rimi was at her feet. She was lying on the ground, tied up round and round. Kosupi was weird. Her clothes were torn a lot. They were in pieces. And there was creepy crawling. Creepy crawling. What was? Her shell, her skin, her cheeks and her necks and her arms and around her belly button and up her thighs and creepy crawly, squishy wishy. Lots of thingies were wiggling under Kosupi's skin. Not 1, 10 thingies, 20 thingies, maybe 30 thingies. I think they're parasites, inky little caterpillars. Kosupi shakes her head around. Her eyes went everywhere. Lots of drool, dribbly, dribble. Her face looked super stupid. Looked funny. She was also wearing a thingy on her head. It had lots of cords coming out of it. Like a toy. Like a super duper Power Rangers toy set or something.
楽しいことでもあったのですか、西条拓海。
Sig. An old guy I'd never seen before. Who?
なるほど。無意識に折原梢と妄想をシンクロさせているのですか。随分と物好きですね。そんなに焦らずとも。彼女の次は君にたっぷりとあの拷問を受けさせてあげますよ。
Who's next? Me? I didn't want that. Who's next? Me? No, I didn't want that. Who's next? Me? No, I didn't want that. I didn't want any suffering. I didn't want any pain.
タク、あなたなら止められる。今なら止められる。あなたなら。
My wrists should have been tied behind my back, but suddenly, as if it had a will of its own, the cord loosened and fell to the floor. Tied up and lying on the ground, Rimi turned just her gaze to me. Her eyes pleaded with me. A gigantic device sat in the center of the dome-shaped room, giving off an eerie hum. That is NoAH 2. Destroy it. Rimi's eyes asked this of me. A tall, intellectual-looking man, Norose, had his back turned to me. He was watching Kozupi's torture with an earnest look on his face. He hadn't noticed me moving. There was no one else around, not even Suwa. I could do it now. I was the only one who could. But I was scared. What if Norose caught me? What if I failed? When I thought these things, my body began to tremble. There was something seriously wrong with this game, forcing the fate of the world onto someone like me. But I had to do it. That realization and resolve came to me with surprising ease. Maybe I'd grown stronger. Yeah, that was it. I was strong. I was super strong now. I stood up, slowly. Norose still hadn't noticed. For a final boss, he was a total dumbass. Was it that fun watching Kozupi suffering? Raw disgust flowed through me. I gritted my teeth. Come forth, D-Sword. Ripples appeared in the open air, and a blue light burst forth. I grasped it. I felt it. Neither cold nor hot, neither hard nor soft. I drew it from the Diric Sea, and a long, grand sword settled in my hand.
NANI?
He finally noticed me, but it was too late. I real-booted my D-Sword. This is a delusion. I sent particles flying into everyone's dead spots. I'd done it completely unconsciously. The method that I'd used, or how it worked, didn't matter to me. I just had a delusion. It had come to be. I gripped the hilt of my D-Sword with both hands. Its glow transformed from blue to red. Oh, maybe we did just catch him off guard. Norose stared at me in disbelief. He was shrinking back. I'd won. Nope, it is a delusion. I grinned from ear to ear. Raised my sword. It formed a delusion. Don't pull a switcheroo again. This was a sword of light. It possessed incredible power. Power to cut through the very air itself. If I called forth all its power and swung the blade, it could reduce anything on this earth to rubble. I couldn't come up with a name for my special attack right on the spot, so I just gave up on shouting something out. Besides, this wasn't some shonen manga. I took the power I'd stored in my D-Sword through my delusions, and unleashed it all toward NoAH 2.
What? No, that can't be right. Only Norose is able to touch it.
The winter sky was barely blue, but in exchange, unlike the summer sky, it was crisp, cool, and carried an almost translucent aura. It was morning. A few minutes ago, my eyes had opened to the sound of my alarm clock. And now, as I brushed my teeth, my gaze shifted up toward the sky. It had been 2 months since that insanity. Shibuya was still in the midst of its reconstruction efforts. Ever since the new year had first kicked off, little by little, Shibuya had slowly been returning to its noisy, gaudy-ass self. A voice called my name. When I turned around, I saw Rimi making her way up the stairs. I hadn't seen her in her school uniform since that day. Rimi gave me a big smile and took a salute-like pose.
Bishi, ohayo. Asagohan, isoide tsukuru ne.
Rimi was holding a bag from the convenience store. Inside were some eggs, milk, and white bread. Standing in front of the sink, she cheerfully started making preparations. For the past 2 months, Mimi had made it a point to come to my base pretty much every morning to cook me breakfast. Apparently she hadn't done much cooking before she'd met me, so this doubled as practice for her. I wanted to tell her not to use me as her guinea pig, but just being able to eat at girls' home cooking at all made me incredibly happy. So I just bit my tongue and put up with it.
今日から学校再開だね。
Ever since the earthquake, Swanima Academy had been closed down, but it was finally reopening today. I plan to use this opportunity to leave behind my semi-shut-in lifestyle, starting by seriously attending school.
タクトまた学校に通えるなんて嬉しいな。
I don't trust this. I don't trust this. Just putting it out there. I don't trust this. I think it's a delusion.
As she said that, Rimi cracked open an egg. As one would expect, it wasn't exactly feasible to eat outside right in the middle of winter. You'd freeze your ass off. To avoid that, Rimi carried inside the 2 servings of toast and scrambled eggs she made for us, and set them down on the small table beside each other. And once her hands were free, the 2 of us sat down next to each other on the sofa.
じゃあ、いただきます。
いただきます。
After putting my hands together, I reached for the butter sitting at the edge of the table. However, Mimi had done the same thing at almost the same time, and our fingertips brushed up against each other atop the container of butter. What a rom-com-ass plot point. Smiling wryly at that in my head, my eyes soon met those of Rimi's, who was sitting extremely close to me, and my heart began to pound. Rimi didn't take her eyes off of me, nor did she pull back her hand. Both of us had gone rigid, staring at each other as our fingers touched. Rimi entwined her fingers with my own. Her eyes softly closed, and then she ever so slightly lifted her face. Naturally, I held Rimi's hand in return. I slowly neared her lips.
朝から何イチャついてんの？
Flustered, I jumped away from Rimi. When I looked at my door, I saw Nanami standing there. I had no idea when she'd shown up. All I knew was that her arms were crossed. She had a pretty exasperated look on her face.
ナナちゃん、おはよう。
ナナミ、心臓に悪いことするなよ。
お兄とリミさんってほんと仲いいね。焼けちゃうな。ねえねえ、実際のところどこまで行ったの？どこまでって？
Totally normal thing for siblings to ask.
またまたとぼけてないで教えてよ、リミさん。
Seemed like Nanami had selected Rimi as her next target. Barging into my room, she pulled aside my computer chair and sat down in front of Rimi.
キスは当然したとして、その先は？ちょっとからかわないでよ。いいじゃん、教えて。教えない。じゃあお兄、教えてよ。どこまで行ったか。
I'm not telling you. Besides, we haven't even kissed yet. Oh, why do you have to remind me? God, I'm such an idiot. I've had so many chances before now. I hate myself. At this rate, I felt like I'd never lose my V card. Starting to get depressed at how much of a loser I was, I gulped down some milk.
リミさんがのんびりしてるなら、ナナがお兄を奪っちゃうかな。
Yamano! Yamano!
Practically a gallon of milk spurted from my mouth.
お兄、汚な。
Not as nasty as what you said.
お前。
冗談だよ。本気にされても困っちゃうってば。
Can we please stop trying to give me a heart attack? Side by side, the 3 of us walked to school together. Rimi was humming that Phantasm song again. Passing through the center of Shoto Park, we took my usual shortcut. You could still see a few traces of the earthquake around the park. For example, part of the stone wall circling the pond was still broken. Even then, though, it was still way better off than the rest of Shibuya, especially when compared to the sad state of the center of it.
おはようございます。
Yua was sitting on the bench. Turning toward us, she put on a gentle smile and bowed her head.
西条くん、昨日はとても楽しかったです。
Oh no, is this the harem ending? Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
昨日？
ユアと一緒に秋葉原まで買い物に行ったんだ。
あ、わかった。お人形さんでしょう。
フィギュアと言えよ。
Well, it was true that we'd gone to buy figures.
新しいセイラちゃん。早速部屋に飾りました。私も行きたかったな。
え、リミってフィギュアに興味あるの？
When I asked that, Rimi gave a slightly sheepish smile.
っていうか、タクの好きなもの、私も好きになりたいし。わあ、大胆発言。だったら今度一緒に買いに行きましょう。え、本当？ありがとうございます。
Yua and Rimi had really hit it off. Yua's and Nanami's classes were both in different buildings, so we said our goodbyes at the school entrance. As I changed into my indoor shoes, someone came up from behind me and blew into my ear. I shuddered, goosebumps springing up all over me, jumped away and spun around. There stood Ayase, wearing a narrow smile.
おはよう、タク。
あ、おはよ
う。おはよう、あやちゃん。あやちゃん。
Ayase tilted her head when she heard Rimi call her that.
初めてよ。その呼び方をされたのは悪くないわ。でしょ？ファンタズムのライブがあるの。あさって。
She abruptly changed the subject. Unsurprisingly, Ayase was as hard to get a read on as ever.
よかったら来て。
僕に言ってるの？
匠に言ってるのよ。それとリミ。あ、本当？絶対行くね。
Phantasm had broken up a while back, but I'd heard they'd had a sudden revival after the new year started up. I didn't know where the change of heart had come from, but what I did know was that I wanted to hear more of Ayase singing.
でも、匠は渡さないわ。
I didn't really know what was up with the butt, but Ayase reached out and softly caressed my cheek, as if she was showing Rimi her place.
Yep, harem ending. Oh god. Oh no.
じゃあね、匠。
I hate harems. I hate them.
With a bewitching smile, she climbed the stairs in front of us. In a daze, I watched her go without the faintest clue of what had just happened.
タク、鼻の下伸びてる。
え？あ。
I quickly shot a hand up to my mouth.
冗談。
When we reached the outside of her classroom, CoZ came racing down the hallway, her smile stretching from ear to ear. But before she could make it to us, she suddenly crashed into a boy coming out the classroom and landed flat on her butt. Her eyes swimming with tears, she apologized to the boy and finally managed to get over to us.
How are you gonna become the next new gen killer if you don't get better at running?
怪我はない？廊下を走っちゃダメだよ、コズピー。
CoZ started fidgeting. She then looked up at me from below.
たくみさんに早く教えたかったのら。
教えるって何を？
ほんとね、
Kosupi pointed in the direction she had just come running from. When I looked closer, I saw Senna standing there, leaning against the wall. Her arms were crossed, and she had a fairly sullen expression plastered on her face.
セナさん、退院したんだ。
Senna had been hospitalized over the past 2 months. Sua's psychological attack had put her out of commission for a long time. Senna raised her head and slowly began making her way towards us. She was just as scary as ever. She always carried a certain aura, one that gave off the impression that she would suddenly slap you, even if you hadn't done anything wrong. I had gone to visit Senna in the hospital twice a week, but no matter how many times I tried to make conversation, she'd never said so much as a single word. The awkwardness had been torture. Could it be that she just hated me that much? I didn't really know how to handle her. Fierce tension hung in the air between us. Then again, it would have been more accurate to say that only I was freaked out. She was fine.
今日は学校が終わったら退院のお祝いをしよう。
Kosupi was the only one showing any sort of enthusiasm. Well, I mean, a party with this kind of atmosphere would be pretty shitty.
おい、西条。
That was when Senna finally opened her mouth. I shrank back, refusing to meet her eyes.
これを。
Senna held something out to me. It was a small stick with the word win written on it.
あ、ガルガリ君の当たり棒なのら。
Bewildered, I accepted it. Senna quickly looked the other way.
お前に言いたいことがある。
なんでしょう。
Was it just my imagination, or had Senna's cheeks turned pink?
お前のことが好きだ。
Cease! 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 Damn, you literally just confessed in front of his girlfriend.
おぴ
Her sudden confession left not just me, but Rimi and Kozupi all speechless. For a moment, I thought she was just teasing me, but Senna wasn't the type of character to make those kind of jokes. Which meant... Are you serious?
何度もお見舞いに来てくれて嬉しかったんだ。言わせるな、このバカが。
This is the worst. This is the worst timeline. The worst.
She had gone all day, but straight back to Soon mode all on her own. Wait, go back a little. This was all way too sudden. Way behind schedule, Rimi let out a cry in surprise. Kozupi, likely still processing, had her eyes open wide.
なんだ先ほど異論があるのか。ありまくりだよ。そんなとにかくダメだって。
What the?
Rimi and Kozupi were utterly baffled, but the most bewildered one of all was me. I would have never expected something so insane. Without any idea of how in the hell I was supposed to react, I gazed up at the clear sky sitting outside the window. Somehow, even though the semester had only just started, it was already quite the eventful day. I wonder, will every day be like this from now on? Will these fun, peaceful times go on forever? Nope, it's a delusion. It's a delusion. I sure hope so. I wish for it from the bottom of my heart. It's a delusion. It's a delusion. Suddenly, I saw the reflection of my face in the window. It's a delusion. The reflection I saw wasn't me, because it was covered in wrinkles. Color and light disappeared. What the? I was hugging my knees close to me and the space dyed pitch black. Hello there? Is that... That sprite looks slightly differently. Oh, is this like some teaser for Love Choo Choo or something? In front of my eyes was the only light source around. It was like a monitor. It was like a window. Okay, we have never seen that before. Is this a Love Choo Choo advertisement? It was like a window. It was like a picture frame. Inside it, Rimi, Senna, and Kozupi were chatting happily about something, but I couldn't hear their voices. I stared at it. My emotions were completely inactive. Or maybe my heart was simply dead. I then realized I'd been watching my own delusions. A 2D world where I had escaped into. A perfect illusion. How long had it all been a delusion?
最初からですよ。
Oh, gosh. I looked behind me, where Norose stood tall. But with how dark it was, I could only see his feet.
諏訪君に心を殺されたではありませんか。
So, ever since he'd done that, I'd been in a delusion the entire time.
君のコードサンプルは採取できました。もう用済みですから、いつでも塵に帰ってもらって結構です。
ああ。
I felt nothing. My heart was dead after all, so I shouldn't have felt anything. And yet, a single tear trickled down my cheek. In the end, I'd gone right back to being a loser. I'd run away from the painful reality.
最後に幸せな夢を見られてよかったですね。
Even to the very end, I had been a completely worthless human being. I'm sorry, Rimi. I apologized, but I didn't really understand why I had to anymore. I didn't feel any guilt. And so, I decided to return to my delusion from earlier. Hopefully, someone would kill me one of these days. Is this, like, it wasn't a route for anyone, but instead it was the bad ending? So until then, I wanted to fully immerse myself in the happiness that came from the world I'd escaped to. What? Oh, or perhaps this rain... Oops, sorry. When had the rain begun to fall? Or perhaps this rain had been brought into the world by NoAH too. A gaze rained down from the sky. The stare pierced through the thick, pitch-black rain clouds and poured down on me like rain. Don't, it's too late for him now. I whispered in my heart to the owner of the gaze. I didn't feel the chill of the rain. Instead, the droplets on my cheek felt warm to me. It was the first time I'd ever thought of rain as being warm. Perhaps it was the fault of the spine-chilling cold enveloping the dome where NoAH too was. Reflected in my eyes was a ruined city. Reflected in my eyes was despair. Reflected in my eyes was death. Reflected in my eyes was nothingness. Not a soul was here. Not a soul was moving. Not a soul was left alive. The only thing I could hear was the sound of the rain continuing to pour. The ark had already been set into motion. We had been unable to stop it, and now the future held nothing but despair. At this rate, everything, both the living and the dead, would it all be gently embraced and washed away? I heard him whisper all of this inside his heart. His heart, it's so beautiful. I walked to the figure lying limp in the rubble. It was my fault he had ended up like this. If I had done better, he wouldn't have gotten involved at all. Feelings of guilt tortured me. I blamed myself. Forgive me. I'll give you peace now. How he had been born was far too sad. How he was going to die was far too sad. A heart so timid, so fragile. It was like it was made of glass. Glass so pure, it had shattered its owner to pieces. At the very least, I didn't want him to suffer in the end. Lying on the ground, he looked up at me with vacant eyes. I pushed aside my emotions. Though I was looking at him, I tried to distance myself in an attempt to stave off my tears. If you and I were the only ones left in the world, if we stared into each other's eyes like this for all eternity, would my world be reduced to what's reflected in your eyes? Would your world be reduced to what's reflected in my eyes? The only thing reflected in my eyes was him. The only thing reflected in his eyes was me. When I thought of it that way, the world immediately seemed so much smaller. At least, in the time you have left, I will become your world. Whether the world is painful, whether the world is agonizing, or whether the world is sorrowful, I'll make it so you no longer have to see it anymore. Gathering my resolve, I let out a whisper. Lowering my head, I spread my arms wide. Almost as if I was preparing to take off, to soar above the rain clouds. As if I was trying to catch all the falling rain.
あなたを見つめる妄想。殺してあげる。
Feathers of light danced about. They served as a gift handed down from the sky, a gift for his funeral. I slowly knelt to the ground, right before his collapsed body. I'll cry if I see your eyes. I'm sorry. I can't look at them. I softly embraced his head in my arms. His body was devoid of all strength, as if he was fully prepared for death.
It's 辛いよね。ごめん。ごめんね。今、楽にしてあげるからね。
His demeanor told me that I wasn't just doing this for my own sake. He has a very peaceful smile on his face. But that smile was so sad. Even though I'd held it in all this time, tears began to well up. I'd held them back because I didn't ever want him to see those tears. He'd finally found peace. And I didn't want to worry him any further. I kissed him on the lips. They were cold, desiccated, and laden with seemingly endless sorrow. And yet, when I kissed him, his trembling ceased. I was overjoyed to know that my warmth was of some use to him. If I drew back from his lips, he would see my teary face. If I drew back from his lips, I would want to kiss him again. If I drew back from his lips, I would be struck with such selfish feelings, I wouldn't be able to kill him anymore. My lips still enveloping his, I sank my D-sword into his chest. The sensation of it tearing through his skin, boring into his flesh, weaving through his bones, and slowly sinking through to the center of his body. It all passed through the sword and into my hands. I'm so sorry. You can sleep for as long as you want to now. Goodbye. Was the sky blurring because of the rain? Because of my tears? His body was enveloped by countless particles of light, and he... I reached my hand toward the sky. Somebody, please tell me. Just where could that sky of ours have gone?
Bad ending. We got the answer to who. We got the answer to who were behind the murders, but in exchange, everything is lost. Everything. I'll admit, I'm a little disappointed that it was just Suwa. A little disappointed. Like, at the same time, I'm guessing that was always the intention. Just kind of... Yeah, it just... It's a little unsatisfying, but... eh. I was kind of... I mean, like... I guess Husky too, but like... To be honest, it just came down to the two characters who were seemingly not of significant importance, who turned out to be the murderers. Like, everyone else except them seemed to have some greater purpose. And yeah, it's just them. Those two. They were the culprits. They didn't really have any particularly interesting motivation. They just there wasn't like any kind of logic behind the murders or anything. It was just kill people in the most screwed up way you can so we can mess with Takumi. And like, at the end, it's all because of Takumi, for Takumi. I just, nah. The murder mystery was just kind of a big draw for the game, so, yeah. Doesn't kill the game for me or anything, so don't worry about that. Just kind of. When it comes to the actual mystery behind New Gen, I'm just not very satisfied with it. It just kind of makes New Gen feel extraneous, like it was just put there so that they could say, people are being murdered and we need to figure it out. There were other ways to torment Takumi that didn't involve just creating a serial killing thing, and like it's built up so much. Just yeah, I'm sorry, like, I don't mean to be a downer or anything, it's just... Yeah, I don't really care much for the answer here. It makes sense, it's just... Why? Why did we need a serial killing storyline that had such a great focus? It was like... It was a major part of the thriller element to it, but... At the end of the day, it just didn't even really... Wait. What? What was the point? Well, we got it out of the way at least, I guess. That ending really only, like, developed, really only developed Suwa and Hazuki, who, I mean, they're just fanatical cultists. I don't exactly care much about them in the first place. It's not like they have their own interesting motivations or anything. They're kind of just lackluster as villains. So, I don't really care. But, I'm at least hoping for more characterization for the other characters going forward here. But, yeah. I'm gonna stop here for now, and I'll continue onward from there, recording-wise. I'm gonna immediately start recording the next ending after this. I mean, I will say, I liked the whole montage with witnessing all the murders. It's kind of... The answer is so unsatisfying that it's just kind of... I'll stop ranting about it now. I will see you guys, pretty soon. I'm only breaking this apart so I don't have, like, the mother of all video files that I have to, edit. This is for my own sanity, believe me. But, yep, I will see you guys next time.